The flashing red and blue lights from 2 patrol cars cast their glow across every pump at the Texaco station off Highway 37 in Riverside, Missouri. My wife, Sarah, stood frozen with a receipt clutched in both hands, shaking her head in disbelief. Meanwhile, a woman in a glittery purple windbreaker shouted into her phone with the urgency of someone calling in an airstrike. She actually screamed, "I need backup immediately. We got a gas thief who just stole $47.83 worth of premium unleaded." Loud enough for 3 truck drivers to step outside the convenience store and spectate. The 2 officers arriving at the scene didn't take long to size things up. One glance at the crumpled receipt in Sarah's hand was all it took. They looked at each other, and the younger officer broke into such uncontrollable laughter that he had to lean against his cruiser to keep his balance. To make sense of how we ended up in that absurd scene, let me rewind. My name's Jake Peterson. I run a small landscaping business here in Riverside, driving a beat-up Chevy Silverado that sounds like it's on its last legs but still hauls what I need. Sarah, my wife, teaches 3rd grade and somehow manages endless patience with a room full of 8-year-olds. That Tuesday night was supposed to be simple, just filling her Honda Accord before heading to her sister's for dinner. Instead, it turned into one of the most ridiculous emergency calls this town has ever seen, thanks to a woman named Linda Garrison. Linda was 52, and though she had no training in law enforcement, she acted like she was the county's self-appointed sheriff. The real sheriff department had even slapped her with a restraining order after too many bogus calls about suspicious joggers in her neighborhood. She drove a white Lexus with a bumper sticker that read, "I brake for no one," which said everything about her attitude. Rhinestone sneakers, oversized sunglasses even at night, and a clipboard she carried everywhere. Though nobody knew what she ever wrote on it, completed the look. Linda had a knack for inserting herself into other people's lives, convinced she was performing some great civic duty. Sarah just finished filling up at Pump 4, when Linda swooped in like some kind of parking lot demon. She positioned herself between Sarah and the car door, arms crossed, voice shrill, insisting she watch Sarah steal gas. Sarah, calm as ever, held up the receipt stamped just a minute earlier. Linda dismissed it instantly, claiming anyone could forward a receipt these days with a printer and a YouTube tutorial. She added, with the confidence only a late-night crime documentary binge watcher could have, that she knew exactly how these scams work. Then came the phone call. With theatrical flair, Linda whipped out her shiny new iPhone, dialed 911, and, without breaking eye contact with Sarah, launched into a play-by-play like a reporter covering a battlefield. She lied about knowing the police chief personally, claimed she was detaining a suspect, and described Sarah's car down to the license plate letters, all while Sarah stood quietly with the receipt still in hand, looking at her like she'd lost her mind. Linda wasn't done. She announced she was placing Sarah under citizen's arrest, which in Missouri doesn't even apply here, since paying for gas with a debit card isn't a felony. She even tried to snatch Sarah's car keys before Sarah calmly suggested they walk to the cashier together to confirm payment. But Linda had gone too far into her fantasy to back down. She stormed into the store, rhinestone sneakers squeaking with every step, and demanded the 19-year-old clerk, Tommy, print out the last hour's surveillance footage. When he tried to explain that you can't just print video, she slammed her hand on the counter and declared him a material witness in a grand theft investigation. Meanwhile, outside, Linda's Lexus sat running, blocking Pump 3. A construction worker named Frank, waiting to fill his truck, leaned on his horn, frustrated. The honking only added fuel to Linda's already burning outrage. She burst back outside and, with finger pointed, accused Frank of being Sarah's partner in crime, claiming he was deliberately distracting her to help Sarah escape. Frank, still leaning on his truck, looked at her blankly and replied, "Lady, I just want to fill up and get home to my family." Determined to take control, Linda jumped into her Lexus and tried to maneuver it behind Sarah's car to block her in. In her frenzy, she miscalculated, scraped against the concrete barrier, and carved a long gash into her own SUV. Instead of admitting fault, she spun around and blamed Sarah for forcing her into defensive action. She then dialed 911 again, reporting the damage to her vehicle as though it were Sarah's doing. By this point, a small crowd had gathered. A couple of truckers were filming. Tommy, the cashier, had wandered out to watch. Frank was still waiting on his diesel, and even an elderly couple abandoned their hot dogs to enjoy the spectacle. Sarah stood quietly, holding her receipt, while Linda stomped around, ranting about how fuel theft was tearing the country apart and how she had powerful friends in the justice system who would ensure Sarah paid the ultimate price. When the officers arrived, Linda ran toward them, waving her arms like she'd been holding off a dangerous criminal single-handedly. "Officers, thank God you came. I've kept this thief from fleeing for 20 minutes. She stole exactly $47.83 of premium gas, and then tried to attack me when I confronted her." The officers, Martinez and Chun, exchanged a look that suggested they already knew who they were dealing with. Sarah calmly handed over her receipt. Martinez checked the timestamp, walked over to Pump 4, and saw the transaction details still glowing on the digital screen. $47.83, paid by card at 7:43 p.m. Meanwhile, Chun went inside and Tommy confirmed the payment, even showing the record on the register. Linda's confidence crumbled as she realized the officers weren't hauling Sarah away in cuffs. Her face flushed red and purple as she shouted about conspiracies, corruption, and her plans to escalate the matter to the mayor, governor, or even the president. Martinez, patient but firm, explained that Sarah had clearly paid, and that Linda herself was now facing possible charges: false reporting, harassment, and attempted unlawful detention. The onlookers chuckled, and Linda stammered that she was only trying to be a good citizen. Chin cut her off sharply. "Ma'am, we've had 17 complaints about you just this month. You called us when your neighbor's cat looked suspicious. You reported a burglary that turned out to be a food delivery. You even accused a Girl Scout of running a scam. This behavior has to stop." Then came the final blow. Tommy cleared his throat and informed the officers that Linda had skipped out on paying for a $12.99 car wash earlier that evening. He had both video footage and the unpaid transaction to prove it. The crowd erupted in laughter as a woman who accused Sarah of theft was exposed as a thief herself. Martinez pulled out a citation book while Linda sputtered excuses, insisting she had meant to come back and pay but had been distracted by civic duties. Nobody bought it. The truckers were now live-streaming the entire scene, and someone in the crowd shouted, "Isn't she the same lady who got banned from Walmart for accusing the greeter of being an illegal immigrant?" The laughter grew louder. As Martinez wrote up multiple violations, Linda made one last desperate attempt to turn the tide. She jabbed a finger at Sarah and yelled, "She's probably not even from here. Check her papers." That was the breaking point. Chin informed her she was under arrest for filing a false police report and theft of services. He explained the fines: $500 for the false report, another $500 for the unpaid car wash, plus potential legal costs in the thousands. Her Lexus was towed because it blocked the pump, costing another $300, and the scratch she inflicted on her own car would run at least $2,000 to fix. But the financial sting wasn't the worst of it. The videos of the fiasco went viral overnight. Local news covered it under the headline: "Woman calls 911 on teacher, gets arrested for theft." Her employer, a real estate office where she worked as a receptionist, quickly fired her, citing the embarrassment her actions had caused the company. The state's real estate commission was also flooded with complaints, prompting an investigation into whether she had ever falsely presented herself as an agent, an infraction that carried fines of up to $5,000. In the end, Linda's crusade to take down a supposed fuel thief had cost her far more than the $47.83 she thought Sarah had stolen.